A video spreads across the internet like wildfire. Isabella Harrington, the daughter of billionaire Leonard Sterling, stands on a bright stage wearing diamonds that shine like stars. She opens her mouth to speak at a charity gala filled with the richest people in the city. But her voice cracks, her hands shake, she forgets every single line. The room goes silent as she stumbles over her words, drowning in embarrassment. Within minutes, millions of people online begin to tear her apart. They call her the useless heiress. They say she has money but no mind. They laugh at her pain like it is entertainment. And yet, none of them know the truth. When the world thinks you have everything, they never imagine how deep your emptiness truly is. Before we continue, subscribe to Black Journal Stories, where untold Black narratives take center stage. Isabella Harrington was born into a life most people could only imagine. She was the only child of the Sterling family, owners of one of the biggest real estate empires in the country. People said she was lucky. People said she had everything. But the truth was very different. Isabella grew up inside a mansion made of glass and marble, but there was no real warmth inside those walls. Every part of her life was managed by rules: how she should talk, how she should walk, what she should wear, what she should study, and even how she should smile. Her parents hired image consultants when she was only 13. They told her what her brand should look like. They told her how to be the perfect Sterling. Yes, she had money. Yes, she had comfort. But she did not have herself. Deep inside, Isabella felt empty. She felt stuck. She felt numb, like someone had turned off her ability to feel joy. She lived in a golden cage, and she did not know how to escape it. In her world of luxury, friendships were not real. People smiled at her face but talked behind her back. They wanted access, not connection. Her parents were always busy, always in meetings, always talking about business. They avoided deep conversations. They avoided emotion. Whenever Isabella tried to express herself, they brushed her aside with the same cold line. "Not now. We're handling something important." What they truly meant was simple. Isabella's feelings were not important. Only the family image mattered. Her father, Leonard Sterling, was the center of this polished world. To the public, he was charming and respectable. People admired him. People feared him. He moved through life with the confidence of a man who believed the rules did not apply to him. But behind closed doors, Leonard was cold and demanding. He believed success was everything. He believed softness was weakness. And in quiet, smooth ways, he looked down on anyone who did not come from wealth or power. He never said it directly, but his tone, his choices, and his comments made it clear. He believed his family was above others, above mistakes, above struggle, above certain people. He expected Isabella to be perfect, perfect grades, perfect manners, perfect public image. And when she failed to meet those standards, he reminded her that she carried the Sterling name, and she must protect it at all costs. In that mansion full of shine, Isabella lived like a doll placed on a shelf, pretty, polished, and painfully disconnected from her own life. After her breakdown at the charity gala, Isabella's world began to fall apart piece by piece. The video of her trembling voice and frozen expression spread across social media faster than she could breathe. Every corner of the internet had something cruel to say. Some called her spoiled, some called her stupid. Others said she deserved every bit of the humiliation. And yet, nobody asked why she broke down. Nobody asked what she was carrying inside. At home, things grew worse. The Sterling family board questioned her ability to represent the brand. Business partners whispered about her weakness. Her father said the moment ruined years of work. He told her that she embarrassed the family in front of the entire elite circle. These words cut deeper than anything the internet ever said. Isabella's anxiety grew heavy. Her heart felt tight every time she tried to speak. When she attended class, her mind drifted away. She failed more tests. She forgot assignments. She struggled to even get out of bed. Her therapist tried to reach her, but after weeks of little progress, even the therapist stepped back. One day, she simply said, "I don't think I can help you if you won't open up." And with that, she left. Another door closed. Inside the Sterling mansion, Isabella walked like a shadow. She ate alone. She slept alone. She cried silently at night because she had no one she trusted enough to speak to. Her mother suggested sleeping pills. Her father suggested pushing through it. Neither of them asked her what she needed. They only cared about the next event, the next investor dinner, the next photo for the press. Isabella felt like she was sinking into a deep hole. She felt like nothing she did mattered. She felt like she was disappearing even while surrounded by wealth. And then, one morning, after a long and ugly fight with her father about her lack of discipline, she walked outside to get fresh air. And that was when she saw him. A tall, quiet man stood at the edge of the garden, trimming a rose bush with calm and steady hands. His name was Elijah Cole, though she didn't know it yet. He wore a simple uniform. His movements were gentle and patient, but what caught her attention was his eyes, kind, steady, and strangely aware of her pain. For one brief second, Elijah looked at her, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Someone was seeing her, not her name, not her money, not her mistakes, but her. Isabella didn't speak to him that day. She couldn't. She was too broken and too ashamed. But that moment stayed with her. She didn't know it yet, but the man she saw in the garden would be the one who changed everything. The first time Isabella saw Elijah, she was too lost in her own pain to speak. But life has a way of bringing certain people together, especially when the soul is desperate for change. Only a few days later, it happened again. After another harsh argument with her father, one filled with anger, disappointment, and cold threats about her future, Isabella walked out of the mansion. She did not know where she was going. She only knew she needed air. She needed space. She needed a moment where she did not have to pretend. Her steps were unsteady, her eyes full of tears she refused to let fall. And without planning it, she found herself walking toward the far side of the estate property, the part where her family rarely went. There, near the old garden shed, stood Elijah Cole. He was sharpening a tool, slow and calm, as if the whole world moved differently around him. He looked up, and this time his eyes stayed on her. For a moment, Isabella froze. She felt embarrassed, exposed, almost foolish for being seen like this. But Elijah did not stare with judgment. He stared with understanding. Isabella tried to wipe her face quickly. She forced her breathing to steady. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. For a long, silent moment, she stood there. A billionaire's daughter who had never known how to ask for help, and a groundskeeper who could read pain the way others read books. Then Elijah broke the silence with a simple, gentle voice. He said, "You're not broken. You're buried." Isabella felt something inside her stop. It was like someone had reached into her chest and touched the part of her she tried to hide from the world. She didn't know why, but his words hit her harder than anything anyone had ever said. She whispered, almost afraid of her own voice, "What do you mean?" Elijah did not step closer. He did not try to comfort her. He simply spoke with the same calm strength. He said, "People look at you and only see the surface, but pain does not disappear just because you have money. Pain goes where money cannot reach." Isabella felt her throat tighten. No one had ever told her the truth so plainly. No one had ever spoken to her like she was a person, not a project, not a brand, not a name on a magazine cover. She wanted to ask more. She wanted to stay. She wanted someone to understand her. But Elijah simply nodded, turned back to his work, and continued sharpening the tool. He did not ask her for anything. He did not expect anything. He did not try to stay in her world. He simply spoke one more time before she walked away. "Even a rose can die in the richest soil, if no one cares for it." That line stayed with her long after she returned to the mansion. She heard it in her room. She heard it in the hallway. She heard it when she tried to sleep. Something inside her had shifted, and she could not explain why. She only knew one thing. The man she met in the garden was not ordinary. And this would not be the last time she sought him out. After their first real conversation, Isabella found herself thinking about Elijah more than she expected. His words played in her mind like a quiet echo she could not ignore. There was a gentleness in him, but also a strength she had never seen before. And for the first time in her life, she felt pulled toward someone, not because of what they wanted from her, but because of what they awakened inside her. Days passed, and each day her curiosity grew. She began noticing Elijah's routine, how he arrived early, long before the staff, how he took care of the garden with patience, how he worked as if the plants were something sacred. He was calm, steady, silent, yet somehow powerful. And slowly, Isabella started walking to the garden on purpose, not to escape the house, but to find him. One morning, she found him reading a small book during his break. This surprised her. Groundskeepers were not expected to sit and read philosophy under the sun. At least, that was what her sheltered world had taught her. She stepped closer, feeling unsure of herself. She said softly, "I didn't know you liked books." Elijah closed the book gently and looked at her. He said, "Books saved me when life tried to silence me." Isabella felt those words settle deep inside her. She sat down on a low stone wall, not too close, but close enough to show she wanted to listen. She asked, "How do you know so much? About pain? About people? About me?" For a moment, Elijah said nothing. Then he gave her a look that held years of life inside it: pain, wisdom, struggle, and calm acceptance. He replied, "You learn a lot when the world pushes you to the edge. You learn even more when you climb back on your own." Isabella felt embarrassed by her next question, but she asked anyway, "Did you always work here? As a groundskeeper?" This time, Elijah smiled, but it was a sad smile. A smile of someone who has lived two different lives. He answered quietly, "No, this is just where life placed me for now." That answer did not satisfy her, not because he owed her anything, but because she could feel that he was more than the uniform he wore. She needed to know who he truly was. So the moment she returned to her room, she picked up her laptop and typed his name, Elijah Cole. What she found took her breath away. Elijah had once been a respected professor at a major university. He had won awards for his research. He had written powerful articles on equality and fairness. He had spoken at conferences, inspiring young minds. But then she saw the headlines: false accusations, a scandal created by powerful people, a smear campaign that destroyed his career. She learned that Elijah had exposed a racist academic board for stealing the work of a young black researcher. He refused to stay silent. He refused to let injustice go unchallenged. And for that, they came for him. They lied about him. They ruined his name. They destroyed everything he built. And only months after the scandal, his wife passed away from stress and heartbreak. Isabella felt her chest tighten as she read. She was shocked. She was angry. And she was ashamed that she had once looked at him and only seen a worker in a uniform. She whispered to herself, "How could someone like him end up here?" The next time she saw him, she couldn't hold back. She said quietly, "I read about you, about your past. I'm sorry." Elijah nodded slowly. He was not upset. He was not surprised. He only said, "Life took many things from me, but not my mind, not my values, not my peace." Isabella stared at him, moved beyond words. For the first time in her life, she respected someone deeply, not because of their status or their wealth, but because of their truth. She asked him, almost in a whisper, "Will you teach me, please?" Elijah looked at her for a long moment. He could see the pain in her eyes. He could see the hunger to understand her own life, and he could see the girl behind the sterling name, lost and tired. Finally, he said, "If I teach you, you must leave your pride behind. No titles, no family name, just you." Isabella nodded. For the first time ever, she was ready, and with that, their journey began. After Elijah agreed to teach her, something shifted inside Isabella. For the first time in her life, she felt a sense of direction. Not the path her father forced on her, not the image consultants shaping her into someone she didn't know, but a path that felt quiet, real, and honest. It began the very next morning. Isabella woke before sunrise. No alarms, no assistant shaking her awake. She simply opened her eyes with purpose, something she had not felt in years. She slipped out of the mansion and walked toward the old garden shed where Elijah usually worked. The air was cold. Her heart was racing. She did not know what to expect, but Elijah was already there, like he had been waiting. He looked at her, surprised but calm. He said softly, "You came." Isabella nodded. "I'm ready." Elijah shook his head. "No, you're willing. That's enough for today." And so their lessons began. Every morning before the house woke up, Isabella and Elijah met in the quiet corner of the estate. There were no desks, no fancy chairs, no rich decorations, only an old wooden table, a cup of tea Elijah made, and a stack of books he carried from place to place. He did not teach her the way her tutors did. He did not give her rules or punish her mistakes. Instead, he asked her questions. Hard questions, simple questions, questions she had never asked herself. What do you want? What scares you the most? Whose voice are you living for? Do you know what it means to be free? At first, Isabella struggled. Her answers came out slow and confused. She was not used to thinking for herself. She had always followed the script her family wrote for her, but Elijah listened with patience. He never rushed her. He never made her feel small. He helped her peel back every layer of fear and expectation she had carried since childhood. He showed her books written by Black authors, James Baldwin, Toni Morrison, bell hooks. He introduced her to history she was never taught in school. He explained the systems of power her family benefited from, not to shame her, but to help her see the world clearly. Isabella began writing in a journal every night. She wrote her thoughts, her feelings, her pain, and her discoveries. For the first time, she was learning what her heart actually sounded like. Elijah told her, "You can inherit money, but you cannot inherit meaning. Meaning is something you build." Those words struck her deeply. She repeated them in her mind all day. As the days passed, she grew stronger, not louder. Not bolder in a dramatic way, but steady, present, awake. She started noticing things she had ignored for years. The way her father spoke to staff like they were beneath him, the way she herself had moved through life without seeing others, the way people of color were treated differently in elite spaces. She felt ashamed, but Elijah told her, "Shame is not the end. Awareness is the beginning." Their bond deepened, not in ways she fully understood yet, but in ways she felt strongly. She looked forward to their sessions. She listened to his voice with full trust. She respected him more than anyone she had ever known. And though Elijah kept a calm distance, he saw the change in her. He saw the girl who once broke down under pressure begin to stand straighter. Speak slowly. Think clearly. Feel again. Their connection was not loud. Not dramatic, it was simple and honest, the kind that can change a life, but secrets like theirs do not stay hidden forever. Isabella did not know it yet, but the world around her was watching, and the storm was already on its way. The more Isabella learned from Elijah, the more her world began to change, not from the outside, but from the inside. Her thoughts shifted. Her eyes opened. She started to see things she had ignored all her life. For the first time ever, she understood that her pain had a voice, and she was learning to listen to it. Elijah taught her things her elite education never included. He taught her about identity, honesty, and courage. He taught her the value of stillness, of breathing, of asking why. And he taught her that real strength does not come from wealth. It comes from truth. Every morning, Isabella wrote in her journal. Every evening, she reflected on Elijah's questions. Slowly, her numbness began to melt away. She started to feel again, and that alone was a victory. People around her noticed the change, At school, she raised her hand in class, something she rarely did. She asked questions that made teachers pause. She no longer hid behind silence or fear. She challenged a lesson once when a teacher spoke lightly about historical suffering. Her voice was calm but firm. She said, "We cannot skip the truth because it makes us uncomfortable." The class went silent. Even her classmates stared at her differently, some with confusion, some with respect, some with jealousy. But Isabella didn't care. She was finding her voice. At home, the change was even more visible. Her father noticed her asking deeper questions. She questioned the family business and how it treated low-income communities. She asked about fairness. She asked about ethics. She asked why success always seemed to come before humanity. Her father did not like this new Isabella. Not at all. He said, "You're sounding emotional. That is weakness." But Isabella replied softly, "It is not weakness. It is clarity." For the first time, Leonard Sterling was shaken by his daughter's words. Meanwhile, her bond with Elijah grew even stronger. Isabella found peace in his presence, a peace she never felt anywhere else. She trusted him. She admired him. She respected the way he carried both scars and wisdom with quiet dignity. It was not romantic, not yet. It was something deeper, something growing slowly like a seed taking root in warm soil. Elijah kept his boundaries. He never crossed lines. But there were moments when their eyes met, and the silence between them held emotions neither dared to name. One afternoon, Isabella thanked Elijah for everything he was teaching her. He looked at her and said, "I am not teaching you anything new. I am only helping you see yourself." His words stayed with her the whole night. Isabella felt alive again. She felt stronger. She felt like she was finally becoming someone real. Not a product of her family, not a symbol of wealth, but a human being with her own voice. She did not know it yet, but this growth, this awakening, would soon be tested in the hardest way possible, because powerful people do not like change. And the Sterling family noticed her changing. They noticed who she was spending time with. And they were not pleased. The storm was coming, and it was coming fast. Isabella's growth did not go unnoticed. Her father, Leonard Sterling, watched her closely. At first, he thought her changes were temporary, a phase, a reaction to embarrassment, something she would drop once she remembered her place in the Sterling world. But as the weeks passed, he began to see something he did not expect. His daughter was becoming independent, thoughtful, bold, awake, and nothing frightened him more. Leonard was a man who believed he controlled everything: the business, the image, the people around him, even his own family. So when he saw Isabella walking with more confidence, speaking with more clarity, and questioning the values he built his empire on, he knew something was influencing her. One evening, a household staff member quietly approached him. The staff member said, "Sir, your daughter spends a lot of time in the back gardens with the groundskeeper." That was all Leonard needed to hear. The next morning, Leonard watched from the window as Isabella walked toward the garden shed. He saw Elijah there, quiet and focused. He saw the way Isabella relaxed in his presence. He saw a connection he could not control. Something sharp and dark rose in Leonard's chest, a mix of anger, suspicion, and a kind of pride-driven fear. In that moment, he made a decision. Later that day, Leonard called Isabella into his office. He kept his voice calm, but there was tension beneath every word. He asked, "Why have you been spending so much time outside?" "And with the staff," Isabella answered honestly. "I'm learning. I'm growing. He helps me." Leonard's tone sharpened. "He? Who is he to teach you anything?" Isabella replied softly. "His name is Elijah. Leonard cut her off. "He is a worker, nothing more." Isabella felt her chest tighten. Her father's words exposed something deeper, a quiet racism that had always been present but never spoken openly. She said, "He is more than his job." Leonard's voice grew cold. "You are a Sterling. You do not learn from people like him." This was the first time Isabella truly stood up to her father. She said, I will learn from whoever helps me grow, and Elijah is helping me." Leonard's eyes narrowed. In that moment, the battle truly began. While Isabella was asleep that night, Leonard made a phone call. He spoke with the estate manager. He spoke with the head of security. He issued a quiet order, an order meant to erase Elijah from their world. Early the next morning, when Elijah arrived for work, 2 security officers approached him. They told him his employment was terminated immediately. They told him he had to leave the property at once. They did not give him a reason. They did not allow him to collect everything. They did not allow him to say goodbye. Elijah did not resist. He simply lowered his head, breathed slowly, and accepted the decision with the same calm strength he lived by. He knew exactly who was behind it. He knew this was the price of touching a life the system wanted to control. But what hurt him most was knowing Isabella would wake up to find him gone. Isabella came to the garden later that morning, ready for her lesson. But the garden was empty. The tools were gone. The reading table was moved. The air felt heavier. She asked one of the staff what happened. The staff member whispered the truth with fear. Elijah was fired and escorted out. Isabella felt the world crash down again. The progress she made, the peace she found, the voice she gained, all ripped away in one cruel moment. She ran back to the mansion, demanding answers. Her father looked at her without emotion and said, "I did what needed to be done. He was a distraction." Isabella's voice shook. "You had no right." Leonard stood tall. "I had every right. I am protecting this family. You will not see him again." For a long time, Isabella stood frozen. Her heart felt like it was breaking open. Her chest felt tight. Her hands shook. This was not just about losing a teacher. It was losing the one person who saw her, who understood her, who helped her feel alive again. And now, because of her father's fear and prejudice, he was gone. But something had changed inside Isabella. She no longer collapsed under pressure. She no longer drowned in silence. This time, her pain became fire, and that fire would soon burn through everything the Sterling family tried to control. After Elijah was taken away from the estate, Isabella felt something inside her break. This time, it was not the weak, frightened collapse she had felt before. It was different. It was deeper. It was a heartbreak mixed with anger, pain, and betrayal. She walked back to the mansion with shaky legs. Her mind raced, her heart ached, and she could not understand how her father could destroy something so important to her, so easily. Isabella asked the staff if they knew where Elijah went. None of them did. Some looked afraid. Others avoided her eyes. No one dared speak against Leonard Sterling. Isabella ran to the garden again, hoping maybe he was still somewhere nearby. But he was gone. Every corner of that place felt empty without him. She felt like she had lost a part of herself. In the days that followed, Isabella struggled to focus on anything. Her grades dropped again. Homework meant nothing to her. Classes felt pointless. Her mind was stuck on Elijah's lessons, his words, his calm voice, and the sudden silence he left behind. She stopped writing in her journal. She stopped waking up early. She stopped caring about herself. For a moment, she felt like she was falling back into the same dark place she had been before Elijah entered her life. Her father believed the problem was solved. He believed removing Elijah would make Isabella return to the obedient daughter he wanted. He believed he won. He did not know he had started something he could never control again. One night, after a long day of silence and pain, Isabella sat on the floor in her room. She opened the drawer where she kept her journal, the one Elijah made her start. She had avoided it since he left. She feared it would hurt too much, but she forced herself to open it. There, on the last page he had written in, she found something she had not noticed before. A short message, a final lesson. Something Elijah wrote in small, careful handwriting. "One day, you will have to choose between their world and your voice. When that time comes, choose yourself." Isabella pressed her fingers against the page. She felt tears finally fall, silent and heavy. But these tears were not from weakness, they were from awakening. She realized she could lose many things: peace, comfort, even family, but she could not lose the person she was becoming. Elijah did not need to be beside her to continue teaching her. His words were still alive inside her. His lessons were part of her now. His strength had become her strength. That night, Isabella made a choice. She would not break again. She would not return to being silent. She would not let her father decide who she could listen to, who she could learn from, or who she could become. The next morning, she looked in the mirror and saw something new. A quiet fire in her eyes, the same fire she had once seen in Elijah. She did not know where this new strength would take her. She did not know how her life would change, but she knew one thing with complete certainty: she would rise, even if she had to rise alone. After reading Elijah's final message, Isabella felt something shift deep inside her. The sadness was still there, but now it sat beside something stronger: determination. She remembered every lesson he had given her, every question he made her ask, every moment he helped her see herself with new eyes. His words became a quiet voice in her heart, guiding her step by step. One morning at school, she saw a colorful flyer pinned to a board near the entrance. It said, "End of Year Speech Competition. Theme: What makes a life worth living?" Isabella stopped and stared at it for a long time. This was not just a contest. It was a moment, a chance, a voice waiting to be used. She knew immediately what she had to do. Isabella removed the flyer from the board and carried it with her the whole day. During class, her teacher asked a question, but Isabella didn't even hear it. Her mind was already writing. She could feel the words forming, words she had never spoken out loud before, words she had been too afraid to admit even to herself. After school, she went home, walked past her father without a word, and locked herself in her room. She sat at her desk with her journal open and began to write. Her first sentence came out shaky. Her second was unsure, but soon the words flowed like water. She wrote about emptiness. She wrote about pressure. She wrote about living a life controlled by money and expectations. She wrote about the girl she used to be, lost, numb, afraid. And then she wrote about Elijah. Not his name, not his job, but his impact. She wrote about the man who saw her pain when no one else noticed, the man who taught her the meaning of truth, the man who helped her breathe again. She wrote about the lessons that changed her life and the courage she found through them. For the first time ever, Isabella wrote something real, not perfect, not polished, but honest. When she finished, she sat back and looked at the pages. Her hands were trembling, but her heart felt steady. She whispered to herself, "I'm ready." The day of the competition arrived quickly. Students, parents, teachers, business leaders, and reporters filled the large auditorium. This event was not small. It was powerful, public, and important for the Sterling family's reputation. Leonard Sterling was sitting in the front row. He had no idea what his daughter planned to say. Behind the stage, Isabella waited with her speech held tightly in her hands. Her breathing was slow. Her heart beat hard, but not from fear, from purpose. She remembered Elijah's message, "Choose yourself." She took one last deep breath. When her name was called, she walked onto the stage with a calm she never knew she had. Her moment had come, and she would not waste it. The large auditorium fell silent as Isabella Harrington stepped up to the microphone. Many people expected her to fail again. Some expected another breakdown. Some waited to laugh at her. Others waited to judge her. But Isabella did not shake this time. She did not look away. She stood straight, breathed deeply, and began to speak. Her voice was soft at first, but clear. She said, "People think a perfect life is made of money, power, and status, but none of these things can fill an empty heart." A few people leaned forward in their seats. Isabella continued, "I grew up in a world where I was taught to look perfect, act perfect, and stay silent. I lived inside a beautiful cage, but I did not even know it was a cage." The room grew quieter. Isabella's words came from deep inside her, from the place she had always kept hidden. She said, "I thought my life was supposed to look a certain way, but then I met someone who asked me simple questions. Questions that broke open the life I thought I wanted." She paused. Her father shifted uncomfortably in the front row. She continued, "This person taught me that wealth means nothing if you cannot feel. Power means nothing if you cannot see others. Success means nothing if you build it on fear." Whispers spread across the room. Everyone could tell she was not speaking from a script. She was speaking from truth. Isabella took a breath and said the line that shook the entire auditorium. "A man society ignored taught me how to live." Silence. A deep, heavy silence. Isabella went on, "He had no title, no status, no protection, but he had wisdom, heart, and courage. He showed me that real strength does not come from the world you are born into. It comes from the truth you choose to stand on." A few people nodded. Some wiped tears. Her father's face hardened. Then came her final words. "A life worth living is not built from fear or silence. It is built from honesty, purpose, and the courage to choose who you want to be. Today, I choose myself." When she finished, the room erupted into applause. Not polite applause, but loud, emotional applause that filled the entire space. Isabella had found her voice, and she spoke a truth that could not be ignored. After the event, when the crowd began leaving, Isabella walked backstage, heart still strong. She expected her father to be angry. She expected him to shout or scold or threaten. But what she found was far more painful. Leonard Sterling stood there, stiff and furious. His pride had been shattered in public. His control had slipped through his fingers. He said, "What you did today was unacceptable." Isabella looked him in the eyes with new strength. She replied, "I spoke the truth." Leonard stepped closer. His voice was low, sharp, and cold. "You embarrassed this family. You embarrassed me, and you threw away everything we built." Isabella shook her head. She said, "No, I refuse to be silent. That is not embarrassment. That is freedom." Leonard tried to regain control. He said, "You will stop this foolishness. You will follow the path I set for you. You have no choice." Isabella felt no fear now. She said, calm and steady, "I do have a choice, and I choose to walk away." Her father froze. She continued, "You may control your business, your image, and your empire, but you will never control my voice again." Leonard Sterling stood there speechless for the first time in his life. Isabella turned and walked away, not with anger, not with fear, but with peace. She left the building. She left the expectations. She left the cage she had lived in for years, and with each step she felt lighter, stronger, more herself. Her rise had begun. After the speech, Isabella walked out of the auditorium with a quiet strength in her heart. She did not wait for her father. She did not wait for applause or praise. She walked forward because she finally knew who she was. Not a Sterling, not a symbol, not a silent girl trapped in a perfect world, but a young woman with her own voice and her own truth. In the days that followed, everything changed. Isabella packed her bags and left the Sterling mansion. She moved into a small apartment, simple and quiet. It was not luxurious, but for the first time ever, the space felt real. It felt like it belonged to her. She cooked her own meals. She cleaned her own room. She wrote in her journal every night. And slowly, she learned what her life sounded like without pressure or perfection. Isabella began volunteering at a local community center. She helped with reading programs and writing classes. She met people who understood struggle and resilience. They welcomed her not because of her family name, but because of who she was becoming. Isabella also started writing articles about the things Elijah taught her, about truth, about justice, about how racism and privilege hide behind polite smiles and powerful positions. Her words reached people in a way she never expected. Her voice, once buried, now carried far. But even as she grew stronger, there was something missing. Someone missing. Elijah. She searched for him quietly, but he had disappeared. No address, no number, no trace. It was as if he had walked out of her life forever. Still, she carried his lessons with her. She carried his strength. She carried the hope that one day their paths would cross again. One late afternoon, months after leaving the Sterling estate, Isabella felt a sudden pull in her heart. A memory. A place. A feeling. She took a bus back to the old neighborhood where the mansion sat. She did not go inside. She did not speak to anyone. She simply walked around to the back garden, the place where everything began. Most of the garden was still the same, quiet, forgotten, untouched. But then she saw it. The rose bush Elijah used to care for. It was dry, weak, slowly dying. Isabella knelt beside it, touched the brittle petals, and felt a wave of sadness. But instead of crying, she did what Elijah would have done. She watered the soil, she cleaned the roots, she trimmed the dead leaves. She whispered softly, "I'm still learning." As she stood up, something caught her attention. The sound of footsteps behind her. She turned slowly, and there he was, Elijah Cole, standing a few steps away, silent and calm, with the same gentle eyes she remembered. Older, maybe, tired, maybe, but real. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. They simply looked at each other. Two lives changed forever, two souls that had found each other once again. Isabella did not rush toward him. Elijah did not reach out. They just stood there in quiet understanding. Because some connections do not need words, some lessons never end. And some people leave your life only to return when you are ready to meet them as your true self. As the sun began to set behind them, the story did not end. It only opened its next chapter. A chapter of truth, a chapter of growth, a chapter of possibilities. And questions the world would soon ask: what happens when the student becomes the woman she was meant to be? Will Elijah and Isabella rebuild the life the system tried to destroy? And can love survive when it rises from pain, courage, and rebirth? If you want to hear what comes next, make sure you subscribe to Black Journal Stories, where powerful Black narratives continue to live, grow, and inspire.